Thank you for your interest in the special audio recording of a Teach 2016 workshop. This audio file is a free resource from USA, Canada Sunday School and Discipleship Ministries Regional Office. Recorded at 2016 Teach Conference held at Springdale Church of the Nazarene in Cincinnati, Ohio. We extend appreciation to the presenter who gave permission for the recording to be distributed as a training resource, and pray that it will be a blessing to your ministry. If you have any comments about the content or quality of this recording, please send them to stmi.nazarene.org or call 1-877-240-2417.
All right, well, welcome. My name's Kyle Tyler. I've been a children's pastor for the last decade, and just recently I took a new position with Nazarene Publishing House to kind of help head up their children's products and curriculum and ministry training. They wanted someone from the field, someone who had experience in kids ministry to come and kind of head up the curriculum and training side of ministry. So that's a new venture for me. It just started out recently, and so I'm still learning what I'm doing. But I am a pastor. I'm ordained in the Church of the Nazarene, and I am a children's pastor. It's all that I've known. I'm a pastor's kid. I'm the son of a children's pastor as well, and it's just been in my blood. And I started working with kids as soon as I stopped being one, and have been ever since. And it's just kind of been my thing. And then preteens slowly became my focus late in my teenage years, and I was just kind of a mentor, just an older kid hanging out with the preteens. And then they became kind of my official focus, and it became a big part of my ministry early on. And then for the last 10 years, I've really been focusing a lot on preteen ministry. So that brings us to today. Preteens. This is not a secret formula, and I don't even think I'm an expert. I'm just a guy who has worked with preteens for a long time. I'm still learning so much as I spend time with them, and I'm sure you guys are too. Does everybody in here work with preteens? Is that why you're in here? Okay, awesome. So you guys probably have something to teach me too, and I really hope we're going to spend a little bit of time at the end today just kind of having a little rap session, because I'd love to hear from you guys. And as things come up, you are welcome to interject. I like discussion. I don't want to be a talking head. You guys bring your knowledge to the table. We are better together, so go ahead and bring it. I am not the expert. We together are an expert team, and so that's how we will be our best. Let me pray for us. God, thanks for this conference and the chance to learn from each other. Thanks for your love. Thanks for your equipping. Thanks for putting people in our lives that can help us to learn. Will you help our word? Will you help us to show love to the kids that you have put in our care? Make us better, make us stronger, and help us to be like you. We love you. Amen. So preteens are stuck in the middle of everything. They're not kids anymore, but they're not teenagers, and they want to talk to adults and hang out with adults, but they also still like sitting at the kids' table when you all get together for a meal. They like to play with Legos, but they also like to play fantasy football. Like, they are this, even schools don't even know where they belong, right? Schools are they, who's like fifth graders or in elementary, or fifth graders in who's fifth graders in mid-high? Okay, and the schools and some in the churches, they're just like they're being tugged every which way, right? They're really kind of stuck in the middle, and it's kind of creating an identity crisis both for them, and they're already having enough trouble because it's weird and it's early adolescence, and there's so much to figure out. So they're already kind of having an identity struggle, and then we're not really helping by not being able to help them identify one way or another. So maybe I could help a little bit with a couple of ideas for that today, and maybe you guys can too. So I have 4 E's that kind of keep my brain focused on where it needs to be with preteens. The first one is to energize preteens. How do we energize preteens? How do we make them want to come back? All right, so I'm not telling you to energize preteens. You know that's easy to make them be full of energy. I'm telling you, how do you energize them to want to be at church and to want to be around and be engaged and be a part of things? Preteens, they get lost in life's shuffle. We don't watch them like a hawk like we do with our teenagers, right? Because they're not quite at the place where they're going to necessarily be, trying to sneak out of the house and trying to text their girlfriend or whatever. Like they're not quite there yet. We don't have to care for them like we do little people, right? Because they can handle themselves and they can make their own doggone peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I'm not getting up off this couch. And they can handle themselves, but they really want someone to know them. They really want peers and adults both to know them, to know their story. If you can create opportunities for you to say their name out loud, then you are doing the right thing. When they are just come walking. Now, the most recent staff position I was on was a really big church, a church of 2,500, right? So I know that we're not all at churches of 2,500, but before that I was at a small church, and before that I was at an even smaller church. So I've kind of seen the three different sizes that we can work with, and what always matters is calling a kid by name, especially if it's only like their second time there. Man, if they come back a second time and you remember their name, that's a really big deal. And at a really big church, we'd stick name tags on them so we could remember their name, and because it's hard to remember that many kids' names. And still, when I said their name out loud, even though they had a name tag right here, it's still you could just feel them connecting with you. They want to be known. They don't want to be lost in another shuffle like they are at home and like they are at school. At church, you need to give them a place to be known. Not only know their name, but know their story. Know something about them. Take an opportunity to know them deeper than just a really surface level. If you know their pet's name, or you know like what position they play on the soccer field, or what's going on in their family life or their family health or whatever, those little things go a long way to building trust with preteens and to helping to energize them to want to be a part of things, to want to come back. I had this volunteer, his name was Tim, and Tim had worked with preteens for a long time. Tim was a young adult, young new married guy, and Tim liked to play Minecraft, the video game, and I don't know very much about Minecraft. I really haven't played it. I've never really been a big video game guy. I connect with preteens in different ways, but Tim really liked to play Minecraft and other video games, and we have obviously this group of preteen boys that also really like to play Minecraft. And when they found out that Tim liked to play Minecraft, you could just see this bzz, bzz, bzz connection form between them, and they would go to Tim every single week and they would want to talk about it. And he became like a hero to them because he's an adult, he's a grown-up, and he's into something that they are into. He values something that they value. And it's something just so simple as this game, as Minecraft, but man, it really mattered to them. It really mattered because it helped them to feel known and to feel valued and to feel loved. And he didn't try to hide it, and he wasn't embarrassed or anything. He was proud that he liked Minecraft and that these kids liked Minecraft and that they could talk, and he talked to them at times. I mean, he was an adult and he was a mentor and he did a great job, but he could also kind of make them feel like peers of his because he could talk to them on, because they, as far as Minecraft went, they were kind of all on the same level. And it really helped them to feel loved and to feel known. Preteens are energized about coming to church when they come to a community that knows their story, where everybody knows their name and they're made to feel special. That's how we energize preteens. So after we get them energized and they come, then how can we engage them? That's the next E. How do we engage preteens? Well, they need to be set apart. They need to be their own thing in some way. They would much rather identify with an older crowd than with a younger crowd, right? When you're a fifth grader, when you're a sixth grader, you would, if you're a fifth grader, you'd rather be lumped in with the sixth graders than with the fourth graders. It's just natural. When you're a sixth grader, you always want to be with the older kids because they're just a little bit cooler and a little bit more knowledgeable. Fifth graders want to be And you can't always do that. First of all, we know that 5th graders, 6th graders, preteens, maybe even 4th graders, if you would call them preteens, they're not ready for the youth group yet. Like they're just not. And I know some places they just have to be there, but when you can't, if you're in a small church and you stick a 5th grader who's 10 years old in with a senior hire who's 18, I mean they are worlds apart, But I mean I understand that sometimes in a small church there's just no other way to do it. But if we can find ways to help our preteens be set apart because they are kind of stuck in the middle, they're not really kids, but they're not really teenagers, they're right in the middle. Then you begin to help them engage. One way to do this is with their own space. Give them their own space. However you can do it. If you've got a room that you can give them their own room. If you just have one room for all of children's ministries and you don't have a room to give them a corner of the room. Find a space that they can call their own, a place that they automatically go every Sunday. At the smaller church where I was on staff, we happened to have an extra Sunday school classroom that was kind of being used as storage and just junk was in there, and I asked if I could have it, and they said, if you'll clean it, you can have it. And so I got a group of volunteers in there, and we cleaned it, and I found a foosball table at a garage sale for $5. We put the foosball table in there. I put a bunch of Legos in there because, like I said, preteens still like to play with Legos. I still like to play with Legos, so I mean, it's that you don't really, if you like it, you like it. You're not probably going to outgrow it. So we put a bunch of Legos in there. I had my old PlayStation from when I was in college. I stuck that in there, and that was really it. And I had a big chalkboard, and I put a bunch of different colors of chalk in there. That was really it. It was super simple, and that was their space. And we, you can give their space a name. But if you only have a corner, fine. Find out from your preteens what they would like to put in that corner, and they will have some big dreams, but they will have some realistic ideas. And put a little rug in there to define the space, and put something over there, and that's your preteen corner. And just give them a defined space to go that they know belongs to them. And then the younger kids, they covet the preteen corner. They can't wait to be a preteen so they can go to the preteen corner because it's just a little cooler than all the other corners, mostly just because it has preteens in it, and they're cooler than the younger kids. So we find opportunities to define a space for them, whether it's a whole room or just a corner or just the end of a hallway. Just give them their own space, help to set them apart that way. And like I said, what you do with the space, you can keep it simple. At the bigger church that I was on staff, I had a little bit more budget money, and I was able to create this awesome space for preteens with cool lamps and cool painting on the wall, and really nice foosball tables and games, and I had this great space. And then one day, I left a little blue rubber ball in there, and I come back in the space, and everyone's playing with this blue rubber ball, and they're not paying attention to any of the stuff that I had put in there, and all the work that I had put in. They didn't care. They just wanted to be together in their own space. So I could have literally taken everything out of that room and put a blue rubber ball in the middle of an empty room, and they would have been thrilled to have their own space and their own blue rubber ball. And it was just amazing just to see them engage with one another over something simple, because it was their space. It was their spot. And then when you give them a separate space, give them a separate identity. For some reason, this is kind of stretching, so I apologize. It's not supposed to quite look exactly like that. But these are a couple of the ones that I've done. One church that I was at, the first church where I was on staff, Shawnee Church of the Nazarene. Shawnee was kind of like a highway road sort of theme. So our preteens, this is nothing groundbreaking. They were called I-56. But we put it on T-shirts, we put the logo on signage, and they knew that. So instead of saying, hey, preteens, over here, I would say, hey, I-56. And it was their name, and they owned it. It was a part of who they are. It set them apart. No one else in the children's ministry got to have a cool name. Just the preteens did. All of the children's ministry was called one thing, but the preteens had their own separate name. They were their own cool thing. At the next church, at Bethany First Church in Oklahoma City, where I was on staff, the preteens were called Wired. They were the Wired group. You could put it on T-shirts, you put it on stickers, you put it on signage, you brand it very well, and they were so proud to be the Wired group, and they couldn't wait to become a fourth grader. It was fourth and fifth graders there. They couldn't wait to become a fourth grader so they could be in Wired. Give them a title, give them a brand, set them apart. You can find something really simple. You Google image it. You put your own church name at the bottom in Microsoft Publisher. You don't have to be a graphic designer. You don't, just something really simple like that, and suddenly it's their brand. It's a part of who they are, and they will take ownership of it. Another thing that we did is we would do events that were preteen only sort of events. And what we did, this is from Bethany First Church. So this is a wired water bottle that you can get. You get the wired thing right here. And the wired water bottle, it's just a plain bottle. This is a clear sticker that we had made and put on it. Everyone starts with this, and then every event that they come to, I would make a sticker for that event. It's a little 1-inch by 1-inch sticker, and if they would come to the event, they could get a sticker, and they would put it on their water bottle. And only preteens got to have a water bottle, and only preteens got to get stickers, and man, it was cool. It was so cool. For the younger kids, they wanted a bottle. They couldn't wait to be a preteen so they could do it. I understand that some things like this cost money, but take the concept and put it somewhere else. Help to set them apart. Do things that are just for them. You can look at this bottle if you want. These are just all the different things that we did over the years, and it was just a lot of fun and helped to set them apart. So engage them by setting them apart. Next one, employ them. Put them to work. Preteens are very capable leaders. Even the ones who kind of aren't capable leaders, when you set the bar, they rise to the occasion like you would not believe. It actually works really well as a redirection tool. I had this kid, Stephen, and when Stephen was in 2nd grade, he was that kid. You're like, oh no, he's in my class next year. Like, you have to completely rethink your entire game plan because you know you have that one kid coming to your class. Everybody knows that one kid. Stephen was that kid. And when you move to a bigger church, you have that one kid times like 5. So but Stephen was that one kid, and when he was in 2nd grade, I began to dread the day he would enter into 5th grade. And then in 3rd grade, it didn't get any better. And then in 4th grade, it kind of got a little worse. And then by the time he joined us in 5th grade, I came in for the very first Sunday, and sure enough, he was the exact same way. Just wild and crazy and disrespectful, and he had a really tough home life, and it wasn't his fault. And we just loved him as well as we could, but he was a tough kid. And when we decided to put him on our leadership team, on our preteen leadership team, something clicked on in his brain, and suddenly he had a job to do. And suddenly this helped to give him a new identity that he had never had before. And he took such ownership of it. First of all, he got to be in charge of other kids, and he'd never gotten to be in charge of other kids because he was always the one that everyone was having to, grab by the ear and pull off into the hallway. Like, he was that kid. So the fact that he got to, now sometimes the power would go to his head, and we would have to help him with that a little bit, but for the most part, he did a really great job. He rose to the occasion. Hey, Stephen, if you want to do this, buddy, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this, and if you can't meet those requirements, then you can't be a leader.
Just believing in him.
Right.
The fact that you believed in him, that he could do that, is what changes everything.
Absolutely, right. It changed his countenance even. And when he said, when you have to do this and this and this, or you can't be a leader. Can you do it? Okay, yeah, I want to be a leader so bad that I will rise to meet your expectations. And he did. So it was a great redirection tool. But when we set that high bar, and there are a couple of ways that we would try to set the bar high. At Bethany First Church, I called it the Charge Team. So this was our logo because we were, if you remember, we were wired, and so everything was like electric themed or whatever. So the Charge Team was the name of our preteen leadership team at BFC. And we had t-shirts, we had logo, we were ready to go, and again, this is a group that was set apart. So this is a group within a group, because there's the preteen ministry called Wired, and the Charge Team was only for the 5th graders, because we were 4th and 5th. It was only for the 5th graders, because we would have had too many otherwise. And you had to go through a process to be a part of it. First of all, you had to fill out an application. Everyone had to fill out an application to be on the team. They would get a packet, like a new volunteer at church kind of packet, and they would have to fill out an application and give me all of that. Yeah, I would ask if they were married, and they would have to fill out references. They actually had to have 2 references, and they had to be non-family. So they would go get Sunday school teacher or an actual teacher at school or a neighbor or whatever, but they had to fill out an application and references before they would even be considered for the leadership team. And for the kids that didn't have a lot of parental support, I would help them. My goal was not to keep anyone off the team. My goal was just to help them understand how official the team was, right? So by going through this process, their parents also had to sign an application that basically says, you need to commit to this. It's kind of like joining a soccer team. You got to be here for practices. You got to be here for Sundays. You can't miss. Your kid is on a team now. They were given an official set of training dates, and they were expected to be at as many of the trainings as they could possibly be. We had our trainings were right after service on the 3rd Sunday, and they went from like 12 to 2. They were pretty simple. But they got this packet, and this isn't all of it, but this is just a few of the things. They got this packet that was full of all of this information. Like I said, an application, 2 reference forms, an application for parents, training dates. There was also a letter in there for parents that kind of explained the whole thing, and a few other pieces that were involved. But they would get this whole packet, and they had to fill it out and turn it in by a certain date if they wanted to be on that year's leadership team. So first of all, by making it kind of official like this, it rose the bar, right? This leadership team is not just, oh sure, you could be a leader, come on. No. You have to want to be on the team, and you have to try to be on the team. You don't get to just step up and be on the team. And that would immediately, by making it official, it raised the bar, right? If you're not a graphic designer, or you don't have a graphic design person, all of those can be made in Microsoft Word. They don't have to look super fancy, but they can be pretty simple. And then after they would fill out all of this, we would hold them accountable through our system of trainings that we had. Like I said, when we had these monthly trainings, and they would be held accountable for the positions that they signed up for. They were now this is not anything new. They were our tech team PowerPoint people. They were our worship team. They were our greeters on Sunday. They were assistants in all kinds of different areas. They were in leadership positions. They were our ushers. They counted the money. They counted the kids, and they filled out an official church count sheet. They had official jobs that they had to do, and they weren't just token jobs. They were real jobs. Someone had to count the money that was taken in offering, and someone had to count the people, and so they were real jobs. Yes, sir.
And they have to be the example for all the other kids.
Right. Yeah, and again, just like the set apart space where the younger kids are like, oh, I can't wait till I'm a preteen. Being on the charge team was legit. Like, the little kids could not wait to grow up and be on the charge team. We had little kids talking about it every year. We had parents of second graders coming and saying, I just want you to know that my child is so excited to be on the charge team. And I'd be like, isn't that like 3 years from now? And I'm like, yes, but they want to put it on their calendar. Like, kids were just really excited to be a part of that. So we would hold them accountable in that way. But also, in addition to helping them be leaders, and in addition to helping them to find some identity through this, you know what else it did? This is more of a macro thing, but it was important. It began to foster a community of servanthood in kids. They began to understand that they could serve the church. They could be volunteers in the church. They could help now. And when you foster a community of servanthood starting out when they are 10 years old or younger, then they are more natural and more likely to be servants growing up in the church. If they volunteer in the church in some way when they are in 4th grade and 5th grade, and then they continue to volunteer in the church when they're in mid-high and when they're in senior high, then when they finally get out of the youth group and they go into college or whatever, they've always been volunteering in the church. So why would they not keep volunteering in the church? It creates this this kind of perpetual volunteerism. Well, I volunteered. I used to do this, and then I did this, and then I did this. So now what am I going to do? So instead of asking the question, should I volunteer in the church, they're asking the question, where can I plug in? Because I always have been plugged in. Not just consuming, but feeding. They start feeding, not just consuming when they are young. Stephen was one of my kids, preteen, and he got to run sound, and he loved running sound. His older brother ran sound, and he got to run sound, and he was super excited. On our leadership team, when he was a 5th grader and a 6th grader, he was super excited to be one of our sound guys, and he wanted to do it every week if he could. Now, we had to rotate and take turns, but anytime he could be back there, he would. He was so excited. And one of our sound guys in the church took notice of this and said, hey, Stephen, next family worship Sunday, why don't you sit back with me on the sound booth, and you can watch what I do and help me. And Stephen was thrilled. So he does that. He joins, right? So after that, every family worship, every time the kids are in worship with, and the whole community is worshiping together, Stephen's back at the sound booth. So he finishes on the leadership team, and he moves into mid-high, and he begins to run sound for the youth group band. He's the guy. And he continues to work with the adults on Sunday morning, and he becomes one of the PowerPoint guys that gets to, running slides. And then he gets to actually sit at the booth while someone chose to mentor him, and they recognized the potential in him. You fast forward to when he gets into college, he becomes one of our church's main sound guys, and he starts running sound like every other Sunday. He's the guy they're looking to. He's 18, 19, but he's been doing it now since he was 10 or 11, right? It's just become a part of him. He goes to college, he graduates college, and now he is the sound guy at his church as an adult. He is their number one sound guy. It's what he does for the church. And I look back and see that started when he was a kid, and it carried through. And that's not just a token thing. It just happened to one. Brady was a greeter, and he was really, really good with at talking to kids. He was very kind of precocious and good at talking, almost kind of like an adult, but he was good at talking to other kids. And Brady, as a 5th grader, was a greeter, and he would greet kids coming in, and he would shake their hand, and he was just kind of like a little man, and he was really good at it. And someone affirmed that in him and asked on a family worship Sunday if he would join the greeter team, and he would be out at the doors with the adult greeter team greeting people. And of course, Brady was thrilled to get to do that. You can fill in the middle. Fast forward, he's graduating high school, he's a senior, and he's been on the adult greeter team his entire high school career. He started officially on that greeter team when he was 15, and he did it, and then he continued. I was in Kansas City, he went to Mid-America, he continued to come to our church, and he continued to be on that team, the greeter team, into adulthood. So I have lots of these stories of kids that began to serve at a young age, and it became a part of their DNA. And they became a part of the church's DNA of servanthood. So that's kind of a macro point about this whole thing. That's not exactly what we're going here for with the 4 E's, but I think it's an important one that we have an opportunity to create. Okay. Stop me if you need to. I know I'm talking a lot. We'll have some time to chat here in a couple minutes as well. Last E. Encourage them. Tighten the unit. The 2 biggest times kids leave church, like leave the church and don't come back, are when they transfer from children's ministries to youth ministry, and when they transfer from youth ministry to college. Those are the 2 biggest times that we lose kids. The youth group, they go from 5th grade or 4th grade or 6th grade or whatever their last year is in elementary ministry to youth group, and youth group is big, and it's loud, and it's scary, and they tell their parents, I don't really like that, and their parents are sympathetic, and slowly they disengage. Same thing happens. They're in youth group, and they come to church maybe just because their family comes to church, and that's just what they do, and suddenly they're in college, and they get to make their own decisions, and they stop coming to church. Those are the 2 biggest times that you lose kids. So this one is not about necessarily keeping them between high school and college. That's another workshop. But let's talk about ways that we can keep them around as they move into the youth group or as they transition, whatever their next big life transition is. And that is to create unity in the ranks. Find perpetual opportunities to remind them how much they need each other. Take opportunities to tighten the unit. When we would get together and do all these different preteen events, we would often do team building exercises. Now, I say to you they're exercises, I say to them they're games. And we did team building games. But in these games, it would slowly begin to help kids understand how much they could rely on each other and how much they cared for each other and how much they needed each other. And even if we weren't doing team building and we were just hanging out together, they knew each other. They knew each other's story. They were a part of each other's lives. They did life together. And doing things like that, just like adults, it tightens the unit, right? When we spend time together outside of church, like the little church I grew up in, we had Sunday night church every Sunday night, 6 o'clock, and after Sunday night church, the adults would stand around in the foyer and talk, and all the boys, we would go outside and play football in the parking lot, and I looked so forward to that time with them. It was not an official event. It didn't have a name. I didn't get a sticker. But just playing football in the parking lot with the other boys my age at my church was like highlight of my weekend. Like I really looked forward to that. And then sometimes we would hope that the adults would come out and say, hey, we're going to go get pizza together, like you do after Sunday night church. And then the group would go together and we would get to be together some more. And man, we loved being together. And it tightened the unit. When we moved into the youth group together, we loved each other. We cared for each other. We were tight together. A way you could tighten the unit on top of those things, challenge them to pastor one another. Adults pastor each other, right? That's something that seems unique to adults. When someone has surgery, a pastor doesn't have to necessarily call a bunch of adults and schedule meals to be taken to them, right? A responsible adult that's not a pastor figures that out, and they work together to take them a meal, right? They pastor that person who's in need right now. They visit them, after they've had a baby, and they are there for them when someone in their family dies. And they just like to be together, and they can drive and manage their own schedules, and they can manage their own money. Adults get to do all of that stuff, and so they're able to pastor one another. But kids can do that too. Kids can engage with each other that way. This is a You Was Missed note, and I had You Was Missed notes in my preteen Sunday school classrooms, and someone who was a part of our charge team, our leadership team, was assigned each week to You Was Missed notes, and anyone that wasn't at Sunday school that week would get a note in the mail, like on Tuesday, because we would send it out Monday morning. They would get a note in the mail, and the note would be handwritten by one of their peers. Now, I know that we send notes home as Sunday school teachers or as children's pastors or as whatever. I know that we will write a note, hey, missed you. But I cannot oversell the impact that a note from a peer has on a kid. Or even if it's like a core kid who already loves the church, but they get home from vacation and they missed a Sunday, and there's a note in the mail waiting for them from a kid from church that just says, hey, we missed you. We love you. Can't wait to have you back next Sunday. Man, that goes a long way to tightening the unit. That goes a long way in helping kids feel like they belong to something and feel like they are known and feel like they are loved. Again, you don't need a lot of money. You don't need a graphic designer. You need a piece of paper. And sending that note, again, part of the macro thing here, is a way for kids to help to understand how they can pastor and engage with people who need us, and then the one receiving it begins to understand how much the church loves them and cares for them and wants them to be a part of it. It helps, like I said, tighten the unit. Another thing I would do is I would have kids join me on hospital visits when other kids were in the hospital. And it was really simple. You know, take them a bag of Skittles and say, hey, give this to them and come with me, you know, or a parent, and that kid would just meet me at the hospital. When you're doing all this, make sure you're not one-on-one, you know, with a kid. So I wouldn't go pick up a kid, just me and that kid, and go. You know, I would always make sure we had another adult with us and we were being safe. But take a kid with you to the hospital, visit another kid who's in the hospital. That is so powerful and so impactful on the kid laying in that hospital bed. Kids can pastor each other. That's just a couple ways, but you guys could probably think of others. Kids can be there for each other, and this helps to tighten the unit. Another way to help tighten the unit is to create opportunities for parents to be together. When we are ministering to preteens, we also are or should be ministering to their parents, because their parents manage their schedule, their parents manage their finances, their parents manage their transportation, and if you can engage their parents, then you can engage the preteens. If their parents get together and they know each other, and then suddenly they are getting together organically, right? They're calling each other. They don't need your help. They're calling each other and getting together for dinner, and they're going swimming, and they're hanging out on a Saturday, and their kids are joining the same baseball teams and things like that because they had time to get to know each other and be together, and they realize their kids are the same age, and they realize their kids are buddies, and everyone wants their kids to have close friends. And you know, if you can bring parents together, then you can help to bring kids together. You tighten the family unit, you tighten your unit of preteens. One thing that I did, and this is just an example, just straight from my church like the others, and this may not be something you do, but just so you can kind of see the impact. I took my kids on a mission trip, my 5th graders on a mission trip, and a lot of people will say that's way too young to take kids on a mission trip, and it is young, but it's not too young, and it was a very impactful trip. We did it every year for 10 years. And they would have to be on the leadership team. Not just anybody could go. You had to be a part of the leadership team. And you had to memorize big passages of scripture, and you had to show up at extra trainings and everything. It was a big deal to get to go on the trip, and there were hoops that you had to jump through to be a part of it. But if you got to go on the trip, it was most of the kids got to go. So like one year I had 26 5th graders on my leadership team, and 24 of them went on the trip. So almost everybody went because the trip was a big deal. And the trip accomplished 2 things. 1, we got to serve at a place that needed our help. And 2, it tightened the unit. Being together and being away, even if it's just overnight somewhere, even if it's just a lock-in or whatever, if you are together and away from home, you can find opportunities to tighten the unit. When you take kids out of their normal, right? Their normal is church. They come to church pretty much every Sunday. Or technically, I guess they come to church 1.8 Sundays. That's the hot number right now, a month. But they're in their rhythm on Wednesday night, and on Sunday they're there, and you're not taking them out of their normal, and there are still ways to help them engage, and those are our primary ways to help them engage, because that's when we see them the most. But if you take opportunities to do something extra occasionally that gets them out of their normal and brings them together, it will tighten the unit. Riley was a 5th grader who, she grew up in the church, knew all the girls her age, they're babies together, but she didn't fully engage with them because she was, in some ways, a little socially immature and awkward. In other ways, super mature. She was, again, a kid who was really good at talking to adults. She was a kid who liked to watch the news at night. You know, she was, we know that kind of kid. She's the kid that when you're at camp and you're a counselor, she's the one walking next to you the entire time, like instead of going out and being with the other kids. And she was great, and we loved her like crazy, but she had a lot of trouble engaging with the other girls her age. And when we drove down on the bus on our mission trip that year, it was all the boys and all the girls and Riley and her mom sitting in the back, because her mom came as a sponsor. And I noticed that from the front of the bus, and I said, man, I want to. This was our last trip together before they moved into mid-high, and I want Riley to engage with her peers. So I called a couple of the leaders together that were the girls, not adult leaders, kid leaders. And I said, whatever you do this week, invite Riley to join you. If you're just shooting baskets in the gym, invite Riley to join you. If you are doing each other's hair at night before bed or whatever, invite Riley over to join you, okay? Don't ever form a circle that Riley's not in this week. I challenge them. And they took it to heart. And they invited Riley to be a part of things all week long. And Riley ate it up. She wanted that opportunity. She just couldn't create it for herself. So other kids had to create it. And on our ride back, 5 days later, it was all the boys and all the girls and Riley right in the middle. And at the end, I'm high-fiving the leaders going, good job, guys. We did it. 2 weeks later, they moved into the youth group, and Riley was arm in arm with this group of girls as they moved up. We tightened the unit. And now she wasn't going to get lost when they hit the youth group. And now this church was a huge youth group, like 400 kids on a Wednesday night. And so when you hit the youth group, it's big and it's loud. And if you don't have your arm wrapped in somebody else's, you can quickly be swept away. But man, we tightened them up, and they were arm in arm as they went into the youth group. And it was a really big deal to see her engage in that way. Tighten the unit. All right, well, that's the 4 E's I have. So I think we have a few minutes left, like 5-10 minutes. I have no idea what time we're done. But I'd love to know, based on what we talked about or other ideas you guys have, this is a great place. I don't know how often you guys get together with 10 or 15 other preteen leaders, but probably not that often. So this is a great place to ideate together, or be a sounding board, or be a help desk. If you guys have a kid you're struggling with, or an idea you want to bounce off, or an idea that is going really well and you think others could benefit from it, we would love to hear that. Or if you have questions for me about something we've talked about, then that'd be great too. So, yes?
I'm that one person. I'm that one adult. You said there's always that one kid. I'm that one adult.
Okay, no, by all means.
No, so our kids go up to 5th grade, and then they're like, see ya,
Right.
you're in youth group, 6th grade. So you have the children's ministry, and then you have a preteen ministry just for them.
Yes.
They don't do anything with the kids. They don't do anything with the teens.
No, they do with the kids.
They do with the kids?
Yes, they are
Okay.
part, because our leadership team,
But they lead the kids.
they help to lead, right? But they have they're in Sunday school, and then when they're in kids worship, they are leaders, but then they're also engaging.
Okay.
So it's not like they're not preaching or anything.
So they don't go with the youth at all until they're 7th grade.
For us, it was 6th grade. We had
6th grade.
4th and 5th graders at BFC where I was most recently. We had 4th and 5th graders as our preteen group.
Okay, gotcha.
And 6th and on was
Gotcha.
youth group. So they were very much set apart as their own thing, but they were own thing within the broader scope of children's ministry.
So they had that confidence built, so when they entered the youth group, they knew that they were significant and capable.
Right.
That's very cool.
Right. Yeah. It was super cool. It was cool to see it unfold.
Yeah, I will just confirm that our group here, I help out on Wednesday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade kids that go with me for their lesson. And then the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade kids go with Pastor John, and they have their lesson. But before that, they all come together. They're all in the big room together, and they're all interacting. But the big kids get to go with me.
Yeah.
And they have, I've started some of them. They get the response. Then they go into teen group when they're in 7th grade.
Gotcha.
So that's the split. And one of the things that I noticed just the other day was that John got a new set of giant Jenga blocks. These are huge, and the kids.
That sounds like so much fun.
Well, what happened was 2 of the 6th graders started playing a game of Jenga as the other kids were coming in, as everybody was assembling. And this became everybody, it was like a magnet. They just came all around and watched this game, and they were cheering on different ones, It was a boy and a girl that were playing, and I was cheering for the girl, and the others were cheering for the boys, and it was an amazing thing to watch. And because they were older, the younger ones were just dying to get in there and have their chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find out where they got that.
Giant jingle.
Yeah, that's super
All
cool.
you gotta do is just cut down, get a few 2x4s and cut them into like 2-foot lengths.
Are you serious?
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's all you have
That's
to do to
awesome.
make
Make your
it.
own jingle.
Well, but the fact that they're planed and they're
They-
smooth
yeah.
and that they're just slightly different
Right.
in certain situations.
Right, yeah.
That's so cool.
Anything else? Thing we can help you with as a group? Or ideas that you have or ideas that you need?
In our church, we have a large number of children that are foster care.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have a child that comes in completely unknown to anybody in the church. They are hurting at the time because, they may have been pulled from their home and stuck into this world they're not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And then they may go home for a visit, and then they come back, and they're all torn again because they've been home. We need ways of making those children feel like an individual but connected.
Mm-hmm.
We care about you. How would you, first time they're in, how would
Yeah,
you
an
approach
idea.
them?
Please.
I have one little idea, but one of the things I've done with my kids is I tape their picture with my camera. They love to have their picture taken, and they love to be in a group and making crazy faces and doing crazy things. But that helps me then to learn their names and their faces because I get the pictures, and then I can put their picture up on the wall or do whatever I want. But it just gives them some identity, and they become part of the group because they are in that picture. Just one.
Good.
You can make little comfort packets too, just like a little box. You can just have a handwritten note like, we at this church love you and are glad to see you back. And I mean, you can put like M&M. What kid doesn't love M&Ms? Just little gestures like that. I mean,
Yeah, something they can take with them wherever they go. to
but
have
find
them
a
with
little
their love
tiny
there.
Bible.
That's good.
Yep, very good.
We also have lots of foster kids at our church, and what we always do is, if we can get kids that aren't afraid to go up to them and to make them part of their groups, they love it. And so, even if they only come for 2 Sundays, they're already part of their group. And so, when they leave, we've had some that leave, and so we always have like their last Wednesday or their last Sunday, we crowd around them, and they we introduce like when you dog pile on them, and they love to do that on them because they think it's so special. And so when they do that, they think it's so special, and we also give them a little care gift card and with a card signed by everybody, and it's so special for them, but it's also so special for the kids that aren't in foster care and are at a permanent home, and they love to minister to them as well, which as a leader I love to see, and we all love to see.
Great ideas. Well, I know I work for Nazarene Publishing House now, and so a couple things that are preteen related, but I wanted this to be a legitimate, like, let's have a real talk sort of workshop, not any sort of commercial. There's a new preteen curriculum out called Collide. It's downstairs. You can look at it. And Eric told me that if you're interested, put your name and your email on here, and he would send you 1 full quarter of Collide to use. So if you wanted to check it out and use it for free, use a quarter of it for free. I mean, that's not a bad gig, right? I mean, so he'd send you the leader's guide and all that stuff so you can check it out. So those are up here if you want to do that before you leave. And also, we are working on a preteen leadership kind of packet, like what I explained here, that would be fully designed and fully reproducible, editable, where you can put your own church information in and edit whatever information into it or out of it that you want. and then you just download and you print. So I just want you to know that that's coming down the pike. So if you saw any of this, you're like, yeah, we could totally do that with our leadership team. You totally can. But we also we got a lot of. I did this workshop a while back and got a lot of feedback of people saying, if you had this for us, we would use this. And so we are creating that. The full gamut that has absolutely everything you would need, all the way down to name tag templates for kids to wear on it. It's not out yet. It's coming. It's forthcoming. But I just want you to know, look for it. Follow MPH on Facebook or on Twitter, or get on their email list or whatever. And when it does show up, you'll be alerted. And our plan is to make it downloadable so it's very affordable, because we don't have to print it. Because printing is when things get expensive, right? So we try to make it downloadable so you guys can just download it for a really affordable price and start using that and create your own leadership team. Even if you already have one, you can help to add a system. This will have a whole system involved with it, and logos and all of that stuff to kind of help bring it up to that official level, like we talked about. Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. How do you prepare the preteens for the youth group? I mean, do you say, okay, here guys, there's some things they might be talking about in youth group, and you know, do you prepare them for it, or I mean?
Yes and no. I mean, this whole time in preteens is, I think, we're trying to prepare them for the youth group. So I don't
what are some ideas? What do you do? What are some things that you do that are specifically targeted preparing them for youth group?
I like that question.
Yeah.
I want to add one thing.
Yeah.
Look, it's hard for me to tell the Bible stories in many cases because you can't be, they just don't quite get it.
Yeah.
4th and 5th graders especially. What do you tell them about? What's the problem with Joseph? You know, what did David and Bathsheba, how do you present this stuff?
Yeah. I typically don't tell them David and Bathsheba. I let the youth group talk about that.
That'd be a college
And
class.
I let them talk about Lot and his daughters, and I let them talk about. They can talk about all that in youth group. I didn't sign on for that. But yes, we definitely do some preparation. First of all, the unit tightening stuff, I would say, is the biggest preparation that you can do. Creating a cohesive group that loves each other and cares for each other. That's the most important thing, because I mean, you can't. How much can you really prepare them for the Bible stories that they're going to hear,
It's
right?
not even the Bible stories that they're going to hear, but you know, youth group, that should be a good time for them to be open about talking about life.
Absolutely,
And that these preteens aren't living the same life as some of these youth group kids are in high school. So
That's very true.
you know, I just wonder how you
I think
prepare
that
them.
typically the next group that they go into, like the youth group in particular, I think a lot of times those teachers are prepared for the younger ones coming in. Like when I'm with preteens and I have the kids coming in from the elementary, I usually adjust my lessons during the beginning to kind of absorb them in, and then depending on the maturity of my group will depend on how much I talk about certain subjects and how they keep it going. But I think that the youth group is used to having the younger kids come in, and so they adjust their teaching for that. I don't think a lot of the responsibility falls on us to prepare them for teens. I think that the teens know how to absorb them in.
Yeah, they certainly should, right? I think part of what we also can do is their final, for the final year, so for me, most recently, it was 5th graders moving up. So for their final 5th grade year, we had a mid-high pastor, and he was invited to everything. So he began to engage with them from the time they became a 5th grader. He wasn't in charge of them, I was, but he engaged with them. He was a part of things. And so by the time they moved to being a 6th grader, they knew him well, they loved him, they trusted him, and they were ready to hear from him, and they were ready to open up to him. So when he led a small group or whatever, it wasn't just him, it was him and a couple key volunteers that were in mid-high ministry. When he led a small group and it was kind of a time of sharing and openness, well, they didn't have to spend months building trust with him, because he'd just been coming and playing with them. It's not a lot of extra work for him. You know, you can't tell your youth pastor, hey, I need you to plan all these events for kids. But you can say, hey, I've planned this event, and we're playing kickball. Will you come play kickball? every youth pastor in the world wants to come play kickball. So I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, absolutely.